All right, I wanted to kind of walk you through this PowerPoint video. And if in case you have any questions, I can kind of explain a little bit of what's going on in it. Now, you don't have to watch the PowerPoint. You don't have to, all we really have to do is just check out Brightspace and read the syllabus. Um, but anyway, I want to walk you through it, or you can just watch it. So, this welcome to Composition One, by the way. This is spring 2026. This is going to look at my introduction, introduce myself, some of the course goals, some sample course goals, our assignments, and it's going to end with the assessment. Right. So here's a little bit about me, a little bit about I graduated Seminole State College in 2006. I went on to ECU and graduated there in 2008, and then UCO in 2012. And I'm currently enrolled at OU in reading education so I can help students read a little bit better. By the way, that was a picture of me when I graduated at ECU in 2008. So I first started teaching basic grammar in 2009, and then I started teaching more developmental English courses like basic grammar, fundamentals of English, courses like that, and Comp 1 and Comp 2 at Seminole State and ECU. I taught basic reading at ECU until these composition labs. Now I teach Comp 1 and Comp 2 and the labs. And the reason why that's important is because teaching developmental courses is the foundation of my career, right? Developmental courses, that developmental education is the foundation of my career. That's what I started doing. And that's actually what I really love to do is to teach developmental students. I married my husband in 2013. We have two children, Leora and Jace. You can see Leora making her brother smile over here. Anyway, here's a little bit more of my family. Again, there's my daughter and my son and my husband. I'll take a moment for that for you to look at pictures. And I just like for you to see, that there is a person behind the screen, right? I was born in Pauls Valley. I'm pretty much an Oklahoman. I've been Oklahoman almost all my whole life. I was born in Pauls Valley in September of 1982. I grew up mostly in Wynnewood, but I went to high school in Paden in 2001. So I grew up as a child in Wynnewood, but I went to Paden kind of through my high school career, when I lived with my mom. I grew up mostly impoverished with drug abuse and alcoholism in my family. And like many of my students, I graduated at the bottom of my high school class. I worked at the Beechler's Grocery in Prague for $6 an hour, until I realized I was replaceable. When I went to Seminole State or started at Seminole State, I started zero level at everything. I took zero level courses in math, zero level courses in English, because I never took the ACT. I didn't think I was college material, right? So I had a lot of work to do from the very beginning. But I kept on going and kept on at it, right? Uh, and that transitions into this academic identity formation. Whenever I realized that I was college material, I just didn't have that foundation. That's whenever I said I started creating my courses based on how our identity has to change in order for us to understand who we are in college, right? Our identity has to enhance. We can't just learn, what we need to learn. We have to develop our whole self and bring our whole self to college, right? So some of the course goals, we're going to analyze some rhetorical strategies. We're going to evaluate some diverse texts, apply genre conventions. We're going to stress the composing process, demonstrate academic honesty and integrity, form and reflect our academic identity. So what does that mean? Analyzing rhetorical strategies means like looking at the rhetorical triangle, discussing audience, purpose, persuasive elements, structure, sources. Some of those diverse texts look at rhetorical elements, genre conventions, rubrics, right? Genre conventions means like standard American English, academic diction, MLA 9 documentation. That composing process is where we brainstorm and then outline and draft, write, revise our essays, that we don't just write an essay, that we have a process in which we compose an essay. That academic integrity, we want to make sure we're not plagiarizing, either it's intentional or technical. We want to respect people's intellectual property. And that academic identity, we're entering into conversations. We're developing critical thinking as a personality trait. We're diving into a love of lifelong learning. So our assignments break down like this. We have some AI and academic integrity assignments, a narrative essay, a literary expository essay, an argument essay, and then a presentation, an academic identity presentation. And then you end with this assessment essay that you write by yourself using everything that you've learned in Comp 1. So this is going to dive into all of that, right? So the freshman composition course begins with a 2-week foundational unit focused on academic integrity and responsible AI use. So before we move into any major readings and writing project, we have to take time to establish the expectations. Like, what does it mean to write and research and think critically in this age of AI, right? Which is nice with my little AI picture there on the side of it. And then we jump into a narrative essay. And a narrative essay, this blocks ask you to move. Instead of presenting a polished version of your life, you'll write about one memory that is not for sale, a moment that mattered because it shaped your values, beliefs, or sense of responsibility, not because it was designed to be shared, right? So a narrative essay just tells a story. We tell a simple, single story in essay format. And then we're going to jump into a literary expository. That's where we read The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. And so this raven flies into a man's window and he just keeps saying nevermore, which I don't know how a bird is able to say nevermore, but anyway, he keeps saying nevermore, which leads the man into a spiraling descent into despair and madness. Although written long before the digital age, the poem's themes of isolation and mental torment closely embodied the experiences many people face in today's culture that is saturated in social media, right? So we're going to go from a story that's not for sale, a story that no one cares about on social media, wasn't designed to be put on social media. And then we're going to start looking up a lot about social media and exposing an idea in literature that's very popular today, that has to do with social media using the Raven. And then we're going to do what's called an advertisement argument. And that is where we bring in commercials when we talk about how is the commercial using me to sell its product, right? It says in this block, you'll develop an argumentative compare and contrast analysis argument that examines how advertisements either exploit or build up our identities. You'll argue for or against the ethos of a specific commercial by applying it to another form of entertainment. So we're going to compare a commercial to a form of entertainment and talk about how it's using us to sell, how it's used our likes and our interests and our values and whatnot to sell a product, and get us to believe an idea about the commercial. And then you go into a presentation that shows your academic identity. And it pretty much is, a picture of my cinnamon rolls that I like to bake. That's a part of who I am, along with a part of an essay that I wrote, right? They kind of juxtapose, which is an art term that means we put two ideas that really don't correlate. And whenever you put them side by side, they start to correlate. They start to bring about a different type of meaning. So my cinnamon rolls, I don't have to have an essay about cinnamon rolls. It's just, this is part of who I am. And then here is a thesis statement that I wrote or something like that. And then we just realize that this is just who we are. I don't have the Professor Worthley at home who likes to bake and can jelly and things like that and raise my children. And then Professor Worthley, who's in the classroom. I'm not two different people. I'm all the same person, right? Those conversations that I discuss and whatnot, it's all the same person. And then we have a post-write assessment essay that says, are you ready for Comp 2? It's a one-page essay that we write during the final week. As we reach the end of the semester, this final week is a chance to reflect on your growth as a writer and thinker, right? So you just write a 1 to 2 page essay all on your own without any help, that reflects what all you learned in this class. All right. And then, so now we have to get into assessment. An assessment, what that means is you'll notice at the beginning of the semester, you write an essay, and at the end of the semester, you write the essay that we just talked about. Well, we need to have something concrete from you that shows that hopefully you're not a very good writer. You're not supposed to do well with this assessment, right? That's what this says. So this pre-write assessment that we need to do on the first week of class, the first 1 or 2 weeks of class. You want to read this poster and write a thesis-driven 5-paragraph essay represented in the quote and one specific life experience. So don't panic. This is worth 25 participation points. The only way that you will fail this is if you have less than one full page. So we want to shoot for 300 words, right? You want to shoot for a full page, at least 300 words. And that's because it gives me a sense of your voice. It helps me to know what we need to work on and, a little bit of who you are as a writer. So you will go to activities and assignments, I believe. And there's a Respondus monitor and a lockdown browser. So that way I know that it's you writing it. So I know that you are the one writing this assessment essay that just takes this quote. Great things do not happen because you have a gift or talent. Great things happen when you are awake for the moment, right? We take that quote and write about it using a life experience, right? When was something that was happened because you were awake for the moment, or maybe you want to argue against it. Maybe great things, you think that great things do happen because you have a gift or talent. So that's it. So make sure that you do the pre-write assessment, that you look over Brightspace, that you read over the syllabus, and let me know if you have any questions. I think that is all. Yes, that is all.